My fellow Americans,
Let's talk about the situation at the border. We've seen a huge surge in migrants crossing the border since January. The number of children in custody higher than it was than its 2019 peak during the Trump administration. Your colleague Veronica Escobar of Texas called the conditions there unacceptable. She was there on Friday. Is she right? What more must be done?
Actually, the facts are these. There are more children, about 600-700 more children, unaccompanied children, coming over the border. This is a humanitarian challenge to all of us. What the administration has inherited is a broken system at the border, and they are working to correct that in the children's interest. I'm so pleased that the president, as a temporary measure, has sent FEMA to the border in order to help facilitate the children going from one 72-hour issue into where they are cared for as they are transferred into family homes or homes that are safe for them to be.
And I have to confess, I knew nothing about their suffering until 2021 when I volunteered to help the Biden administration with the crisis at the southern border. As part of Operation Artemis, I was deployed to the Pomona Fairplex Emergency Intake Site in California to help HHS, Office of Refugee Resettlement, reunite children with sponsors in the United States. I thought I was going to help place children in loving homes. Instead, I discovered that children are being trafficked through a sophisticated network that begins with recruiting in home country, smuggling to the U.S. border, and ends when ORR delivers a child to a sponsor. Some sponsors are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations. Some sponsors view children as commodities and assets to be used for earning income. This is why we are witnessing an explosion of labor trafficking. Now, whether it's intentional or not, it could be argued that the United States government has become the middleman in a large-scale, multi-billion-dollar child trafficking operation that is run by bad actors seeking to profit off of the lives of children.
Russia said once they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries. That puts America at war. This is about preventing war. It's always been about preventing war. My husband is a combat veteran. He's deployed now. The last thing I want him or any of his military brothers and sisters to do is to go to war.
But I think it is time to give the Ukrainians more help hitting these bases inside Russia.
One of the reasons that the administration has hesitated is because they believe it will escalate things even further with Russia pull the U.S. further in. Why not? Why? So why do you think that's a good idea?
because it's Russia that has escalated this war. Russia has learned how to pull its forces back out of the range where we have allowed Ukraine to use our weapons and get our support.
American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they've done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky. We hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews. They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into a war in Eastern Europe and pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda. Propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people. At the same time, our politicians and media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like he's a new consumer brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice. That's wrong. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III.
A U.S. official has confirmed to CBS News President Biden has given authorization for Kyiv to use U.S.-supplied long-range weapons to strike deep into Russian territory.
I'm sitting here with my father. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI does not and has no interest in
You won't answer the question about whether or not that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you.
British police came into the embassy and arrested.
After a long flight from the UK, Julian Assange's day began on the island of Saipan, a tiny territory chosen because it's the closest US court to Australia. This normally quiet courthouse, swarming with reporters, as the WikiLeaks founder arrived flanked by former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd.
individual used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
There are a number of weapons out there with a number of ranges. Again, an advance was completed. The determination of the perimeter, I'm not going to speak to specifics, but there are a number of factors that are taken into account when we determine our perimeter. Some of it has to do with terrain, some of it has to do with buildings, some of it has to do with assets and resources that are available.
What I'm hearing is that a perimeter was not established outdoors in an outdoor venue that would prevent an AR-15, which is one of the most common weapons used in mass shootings, from being able to be within the range of Secret Service protection.
Have you provided all audio and video recordings in your possession to this committee, as we asked on July 15th, yes or no?
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of shit today. You're just being completely dishonest.
So what is the threat to democracy? People on both sides, people in power, saying out loud that they want to control what you get to hear and see. It is real, it is a threat, and it is happening and growing. And I'll tell you what, punishing thought is on the agenda. And I just heard it from someone who's not a kook, not Alex Jones, not Tucker Carlson, one of the most sober and intelligent politicians of our time, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
I think it's important to indict the Russians, just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg admitted that the Biden administration repeatedly pressured Meta to censor content, including information about Hunter Biden, and Zuck admitted that he also regrets complying with these demands. In a letter to the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Representative Jim Jordan, Zuck writes, quote, "The FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it."
You know, you do some tweets that seem to be, or at least give support to some who would call others conspiracy theories.
Well, yes, but I mean, honestly, you know, some of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be true.
Which ones?
Well, like the Hunter Biden laptop.
That's true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am in awe of Ms. Jankowicz. When the department picked her, did it know that she had said that Mr. Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation? Did it know that she had vouched for the veracity of the Steele dossier?
Senator, let me repeat myself and add an additional fact. One, we do not discuss internal hiring processes.
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech.
be a conspiracy theorist is to have been right all along, despite the efforts of the paid-for liars. And it's also to be demonstrably well ahead of the gullible, still believing in smoke and mirrors. Conspiracy theorist was first used by the CIA to shut down those who doubted the official line about the murder of John F. Kennedy, that fishy old tale about a lone shooter and a magic bullet, and then that lone shooter being shot by another lone shooter before he could talk. That was in the 1960s, and from then, the label conspiracy theorist worked for decades as the means to make thinking people too scared to speak when they smelt a rat. Let 2024 be the year of clearing out the rubbish, the trash, the long overdue year when the past or sell-by date labels, conspiracy theorist among them, are cast into the dustbin of history.
Welcome, everybody, to Redacted. We're so glad you're here. It's Wednesday, August 6th. We have a big show to get to. I'm Natalie Morris.
And I'm Clayton Morris.
This is the show where we cover the stories the mainstream media either manipulates outright or largely ignores, and we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about whether or not these new Epstein subpoenas have any teeth or not. Does this mean we'll actually get answers? I know. You're going to get excited again. Hold your breath. Hold your breath for a second.
And then President Trump sending his envoy, his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, meeting with President Putin of Russia for about 3 hours. They say major progress was made. The mainstream media, though, if you read CNN headlines and others, are saying this is now Trump's war. And, of course, the deep state is actively pushing him to want to go face-to-face with Russia in a war. NATO certainly wants that. So who will win? Will the deep state win? Or will cooler heads prevail? We're going to talk to Alexander Mercurius from the Duran on that today.
Also, why did Congress use their summer break to go to Israel and pledge allegiance to Israel? Why these images? Well, we're going to talk to someone I've been really keen to talk to. Douglas Wilson is the author of Mere Christendom and a Christian pastor who warns about these man-made governments. And he's going to explain to us what is Christian Zionism and whether or not it is actually biblical.
Right. We're also going to look at 3I Atlas, of course, this large object, this interstellar object. You have a number of scientists and physicists coming out and saying that this is simply a comet. It's just interstellar debris. It's just, that's all it is. Nothing to see here. Then you have other scientists like Harvard scientist Avi Loeb saying that no, there's no tail on this thing, that this is not a comet. This could be extraterrestrial. So what exactly is this thing? We're going to talk about it a little bit later in today's show.
Yes, we are. Shall we get to do we have our guest in about Epstein? Or should we?
Let's see. Find out if we got that.
But I do, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say hello to everyone. Let us know where you're joining us from here in the chat room. We're trying some new chat functionalities out here on the show. We're going to hopefully be able to get a whole new interface up here on the screen for you here at Redacted. We're trying a bunch of stuff out here. That's something I've been wanting to do for like a year or more, is to be able to do that. So the team is behind the scenes working today, testing some things. So anyway, let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know where you're subscribed from. Thank you guys so much for being a part of our show here every day. We are not funded by big tech. We're not funded by Palantir, Big Pharma, the Israel lobby, any of it. We are supported by you. So thank you guys for joining us. All right. Well, the New York Times, America's most trusted name in news, just dropped a new piece about Epstein's lair, a look inside Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan lair. And this is normal. Look at this on your screen. When you walk into the atrium of his house, there's a bride, like this bride on a rope rappelling down. Would you allow me to put this in our house?
No,
like when you
I don't
walk in the
think
house?
so. But if you watched the Daryl Cooper interview with Tucker Carlson, they talked very much about how these societies really had a thing for either recently pubescent or post-pubescent children because it symbolizes breaking down innocence. It symbolizes you exerting your power and breaking someone else's innocence. Now, if we could just look at that picture again, that comports, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Oh, it's going to get worse than this, by the way. It's going to get worse. I mean, you have a bride on a string in Epstein's lair, but then inside the massive room, you have the rooms, the gathering areas, yes, all the cameras that are watching every movement throughout the mansion, piles of photos everywhere, which is not terribly odd, except obviously who's in the photos. You have the Clintons, you have the Pope, You have
Richard Branson's there in the back.
You have there's Steve Bannon up there at the top. You have Elon Musk in some of the photos. You have Ghislaine Maxwell, of course. You have a whole host of individuals in there. I didn't see Donald Trump in any of those particular photos. Do I? Where?
Look at that. Right.
Oh, right there on the front. Oh, there it is. Okay, there was a glare. There was a glare there, and Melania right there. So everyone's there, all of them in this photo. He also, this is creepy, has a first edition, green edition of Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita book. You know, the novel about an adult who repeatedly rapes a 12-year-old girl. Yeah, he just has that just sitting out there in the open in his house next to a giant stuffed tiger, which is totally normal. In his bedrooms, they were filled with lubricant, just like the Diddy parties. Cameras in almost every corner of the room. If you notice in this photo here in the upper right-hand corner, photos there. You can see the cameras capturing everything in all of these different bedrooms. Meanwhile, subpoenas just dropped. Many powerful politicians from both parties subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee to testify about their ties to Jeffrey Epstein, including Bill and Hillary Clinton on this list. Also subpoenaed on this list, Alberto Gonzales, Attorney General under George W. Bush. Here it is. Here's the full list. You can see former FBI Director James Comey, Robert Mueller, former Attorney General Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch, Merrick Garland. Each of these officials likely had access to Epstein-related intelligence or played a role, giving him a pass at the time. On top of that, newly revealed FBI documents reveal that Epstein's 2008 plea deal included a provision for him to provide information to the FBI as agreed upon. What does that mean? What was that information? What exactly does that mean? It remains classified. Well, I thought we were promised transparency. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino. Like, when are we going to see this information, Pam Bondi? There's no one I'd rather talk to about all of this than good friend of the show, Judge Andrew Napolitano, host of Judging Freedom, and our good friend who can make sense of these subpoenas. Will any of these people actually talk? Who knows? Judge, great to see you. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Oh, guys, it's a pleasure to be on with both of you. Thank you very much. And Natalie and I are going to be together next week without you. Did you know that?
Apparently, I heard about this. You'll be at the Ron Paul Institute giving a speech together. Is that right?
500 people there. We're actually doing a Judging Freedom from there on the dais with the regulars who will be accompanying Natalie as a speaker. But I'm staying until the end because I want to hear what Natalie has to say.
Oh, thank you so much. Now, just to be clear, Clayton was invited too, and we decided we would flip-flop. So Clayton will go to the next one because we still have 3 kids.
Yeah, someone's got to hold down the fort, as it were.
These are great gatherings of serious small government, maximum individual liberty, pro-peace people, as you'd expect at a Ron Paul gathering.
Well, I can't wait to hear about it. I can't wait to watch it and listen in as well. So speaking of government transparency and getting to the bottom of matters, you saw all these subpoenas drop, Judge, for all of these different high-ranking members, formerly Clinton administration officials and Biden administration officials, a whole laundry list of individuals. What do these subpoenas actually do, and will they have any teeth at all?
Well, the subpoenas to the human beings, which are to the last 6 attorneys general of the United States, at least those that were confirmed by the Senate, going back to Alberto Gonzales under President George W. Bush, ask for testimony. They don't ask for documents. Now, we don't know what the precise questions will be. We don't know if the committee will have the Epstein file before they begin these interrogations. The first interrogation is of former Attorney General Bill Barr, who was the Attorney General of the United States at the time that Epstein was indicted, arrested, and then died in his jail cell. The main subpoena that has interested all of us is the one to the Justice Department, which commands the full file with only the names of victims redacted. Now, this has to be causing the White House and Attorney General Bondi serious headaches, because she has said there's material in there, she hasn't said what it is, that will never see the light of day. Question, can Congress get whatever it wants? Short answer, yes. Longer answer, when the Democratic Congress subpoenaed from the IRS the tax returns of Mr. Donald Trump in the years before he was president, something in which Congress could have no bona fide interest with respect to public policy. The Supreme Court unanimously ruled they can get it. Congress can subpoena whatever it wants. So can the DOJ not comply with this subpoena? It may try, but it will lose. Can Bill Clinton, who was subpoenaed, assert immunity? Absolutely not. None of what they're going to ask him about had anything to do with his official work as president of the United States. Can he assert executive privilege? Absolutely not. Can he assert the Fifth Amendment, Clayton and Natalie? Could you imagine a former president of the United States of America being asked under oath on international television about his personal behavior on the island of a convicted pedophile and taking the Fifth? Wow.
Well, this is Bill Clinton, though, who we have seen been asked about cigars and blue dresses.
Yeah, but he answered those questions.
We don't have to imagine him being asked about salacious things.
Did he plead the Fifth, though? I don't remember him. When he answered those, he went like, we need to answer what the definition of is back with Monica Lewinsky, right?
That definition of is line comes from his public interrogation before a grand jury. He did not assert the Fifth. He answered everything. He then pleaded guilty to some very, very minor offense for which there was no significant sentence at all. But he did not plead the Fifth.
Now,
however, the interaction with Monica Lewinsky, as highly inappropriate as it was not criminal. The only crime there would have been if he lied about it. If he had any interaction with underage women, obviously that would be criminal. If he was aware of sexual interaction with underage women and did nothing about it, the failure to do anything is not criminal, but it would be highly damaging to whatever legacy he has remaining if he knew about it and did nothing.
Now, it seems with this subpoena, they're trying to stitch together a thread of attorneys general who would have had access to knowledge for why Epstein was given this sweetheart deal. Is it possible that it never came across the desk of anyone during the Obama years and it was only a Republican president who picked it up again? Or what do you think, for instance, Loretta Lynn and Eric Holder would know? Not that they would tell us the truth, but if they did, what do you think they would know?
I would be surprised if these files came before their eyes. Now, Congressman Comer does not need any advice from me, but if he were to ask me for advice, I would say subpoena Alex Acosta. Alex was the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, covering Palm Beach, where Jeffrey Epstein lived and Donald Trump lives. And I would ask him, you have been reported or reputed to have said that you went easy in the plea negotiations negotiated in Epstein's behalf by Professor Alan Dershowitz because you were told Epstein was intel. Who told you that? And what did you do to confirm if Epstein was intel? And why did you believe what you were told? Now, these are the questions I would put to former U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta and former Secretary of Labor in the first Trump administration, Alex Acosta. As far as we know, he has not yet been subpoenaed.
There's a couple of people notably absent from these subpoenas. Les Wexner, which I can't believe. By the way, they never even talked to him, which is still stunning to me. The DOJ, former Victoria's Secret CEO, Epstein chief benefactor.
Bought the Obamas Martha's Vineyard house. This feels like you can't even make this up. How is he in these circles?
You can't make up. I was just on, this is my home run day. I was just on with the great George Galloway, and George told me on air, on international air, that the Obamas, that Wexler bought the Obamas home. You can't make this up.
No, and then
recently, like this week.
I guess you could even cover up
who's doing
the
favors
deaths
for
on
whom here.
Yeah, and the deaths on that property, like the chef that suddenly, that's a whole other story. But Ehud Barak also not on this list. Leon Black, Alan Dershowitz, Prince Andrew.
Well, they have to. This is no criticism of Professor Dershowitz, who is a brilliant criminal defense lawyer, but they have to interrogate him. Look, one of the issues before the Supreme Court of the United States is Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal of her conviction. And the basis for the appeal is that the deal that Dershowitz negotiated for Epstein covered her and was an agreement not to prosecute. Now, that argument was rejected by the trial judge and rejected by an appellate court, but she is asking the Supreme Court to take that up. I would think that Professor Dershowitz would be able to lend a lot of light, shine a lot of light on that.
I want to ask you this before we let you go, Judge, which is the Times of Israel. I can't believe this story. When I saw it, I immediately bookmarked it. I said, the Times of Israel is literally saying that the Epstein files are coming out because basically Trump broke up with Israel. Or it's like, now it's kind of turning his back. First of all, I've seen no evidence that Trump is like turning his back on Israel at all, of course. I mean, I think Bibi was just there like 2 weeks ago, for crying out loud. But anyway, what do you make of this Times of Israel story?
This is the first I've heard of it. And as far as I know, Trump is still giving Israel everything it wants, which allows it to continue its genocide and its genocide by starvation. Trump could stop all of it with a phone call, because without the United States, Israel wouldn't have any rounds at which to shoot and murder innocent Palestinians waiting online for food.
Right.
Now, I do have one more question. So what do you make of the Trump administration making so many empty promises about Epstein and then fumbling this so clearly and then telling us to disbelieve our own eyes? Why do you think that we are being insulted in this way when we were promised transparency?
Natalie, I wish you could ask that question to Dan Bongino, who said that his stomach has been turned, meaning he has a lot of acid in his belly over what he saw in the files and over his inability to say what he saw. I guess it's to protect the president. I mean, why else would they not reveal it? Now, look, how damning could this be of the president? If it were truly damning, you would think the Biden people would have leaked it during the campaign to help Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. So maybe nobody knows what's in there who hasn't seen it. Maybe Trump doesn't know. Maybe this Israeli newspaper report is just the wildest of speculation. I wish I could give you a better answer than that, Natalie, but I don't know.
I would love to think that Dan Bongino, if he saw his idol, Donald Trump, was in here and implicated in that way, that he would have the type of soul that would compel him to quit the FBI and go right back to a radio show and tell all of us what he saw. I think it might be just so messy with so many billionaires and bankers and funders and donors that are all involved, and everyone's hands are so dirty in this.
This doesn't answer what defies logic. Is President Trump would have known. He knows what he did. Somebody knows what he did with Epstein, and that's Trump. So why would he have made these promises and then allowed his people to say things that would end up not holding up in the span of just months, weeks? It just doesn't make any sense. This bad lying.
The MAGA people have put so much pressure on Republicans in Congress. You would think the Democrats would have subpoenaed these files. This is an enormous headache for the DOJ, an enormous headache for the White House, but the Republicans have done it. Why? Because they want to keep their jobs, and they don't want to go back to the voters in 2026 with MAGA furious at them. The real question is, and Natalie, you put your finger on it, why did Trump join this bandwagon if he knew that his name was in there in a less than favorable light?
Yeah. Maybe just in order to get elected. I don't know. and then he could squash it later. I mean, we heard a lot of people making promises, Obama making anti-war promises, and he comes in and becomes one of the leading war criminal presidents of all time. So people make a lot of promises when they're running for office, right, Judge?
They do.
Judge, great to see you.
Thank you.
See Natalie next
I
week?
have my friend Alexander about to come up. I don't know if he can hear us, but give him my best.
Oh, yeah. Alexander Mercurius from the Duran will be joining us here. And Judge, always great to see you. Have fun there with the team and everyone from the Ron Paul Institute. Looking forward to watching that. Thanks,
Thank
Judge.
you. Natalie, see you next week without
See you
your hubby.
soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Party time.
Thanks, Judge.
Honey, I'm going to a libertarian concert without you.
Yeah, a libertarian concert.
I'm not going to be on any Coldplay cams, just so you know.
Thankfully. No, I wouldn't want to see that. All right. Hey, coming up here on the show, we're going to be talking about Zelensky saying no to a temporary ceasefire. But also, President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, just got done with a 3-hour meeting with President Putin. What did they talk about? The White House says that this was much progress was made. Is that the truth? We're going to get to the heart of all of that. We're going to talk about that in a second. But first, every day we are exposed to more chemicals. Our bodies are inundated with it, where it's spraying in our skies with chemtrails, leaching into our food, polluting our air and water, pesticides, heavy metals, hormone disruptors, synthetic additives. These toxins are bombarding our bodies, silently destroying our health. But there is something we can do to fight back, and it starts in your gut. And our friends at Kimchi One from Bright Core Nutrition, it contains over 900 strains of beneficial probiotics that help flush toxins, restore gut balance, and support our immune system. When your gut is strong, your body can resist. You'll feel the difference. In fact, they've even linked to like Alzheimer's, right? Like an imbalance in your gut.
They call Alzheimer's diabetes stage 4 or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like comes from gut inflammation. Yeah.
It's crazy. So right now, our friends at Kimchi One want to give you 25% off. This is part of my daily routine. I take it every morning as part of my supplements. I love it. It's so important to my overall health. MyBrightCore.com/redacted. Get 25% off the Kimchi One products shipped right to your door. It's all natural, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, 100% made in the USA by a company that actually cares about your health. Or the best part is, if you call them, you'll get 50% off. So why wouldn't you call them? Maybe you're just too scared to get on the phone. I don't know. 25% off if you just go to the website and you use the code redacted. But you get 50% off if you just get on the phone with them. 888-404-6312, 6312 to get 50% off and free shipping. Do you know that 6312 was actually my childhood phone number in Pennsylvania on Independence Drive? 6312. Isn't that crazy?
You know your whole childhood number.
I know my childhood number. 888-404-6312. Just give them a phone call right now. Get 50% off.
That is not Clayton's childhood number.
50. No, that's not my childhood number, but the last 4 digits are.
Right. The way you just said it made it seem like they were going to call 1985 Clayton.
That would be awesome. Let me know what 1985 Clayton would talk about. It's kind of funny. We don't even know our own phone numbers now because of smartphones. It's like, kind of crazy. All right. Well, Ukraine is now Trump's war. These are the words. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of mainstream media, garbage media, pushing Trump to escalate the war against Russia. NATO and the deep state would love nothing more than for Trump to launch World War III against Russia, go all in on NATO's proxy war. But Trump was asked this question by journalist Liam Cosgrove from Zero Hedge. He said, why should Americans continue to fund this proxy war when almost all of Ukraine's army has been eliminated? Now they're conscripting 60-year-olds, 14-year-olds, even people with Down syndrome. Watch his response.
Thank you, calling me. Thank you, Mr. President. On Ukraine, President Zelensky just signed a law allowing for citizens age 60 and above to serve in the military. We've seen dozens of videos of young men being hauled into vans and dragged to the front lines against their will. And we've even seen videos of a young man with Down syndrome serving on the front line. You, when you campaigned, you said you wanted to see the people stop dying. A lot of people admired that statement. Now the people dying are elderly, mentally handicapped, and conscripts. So even if a ceasefire doesn't work out, why should Americans continue to fund a foreign military that's scraping the bottom of the barrel of its population like this?
Well, you have to understand very importantly, this is Biden's war. This is not my war. I'm here to get us out of it. It's a mess, and I'm here to get us out. I haven't heard that when you say about 60-year-old men and, et cetera. But this is Biden's war, and we're working very hard to get us out. I stopped 5 wars in the last 5 months, actually, and I'd like this to be the 6th, frankly, and that doesn't even include Iran with, obliterating their nuclear haul, because they would have had nuclear weapons within 2 months. But stopped a lot of wars.
So 5 wars in 5 months he stopped. Okay. Is that true? And by the way, if you're questioning whether or not, because a lot of people were like slamming Liam Cosgrove online, like there's no, people with Down syndrome being thrown into the meat grinder, so to speak, by the Ukrainians. Yeah, there are. I mean, take a look. Here's just one example. This, of course, individual with Down syndrome, and then also being mocked and pushed into the front lines by Ukrainian soldiers. So absolutely horrible stuff. And it's actually kind of interesting, right? When the president says, I hadn't heard that about the 60-year-olds. Like, who's the gatekeeper that keeps this information from President Trump? Like, it's, in our world, it was like top of mind. Like 60-year-olds now being brought into the Ukrainian military, 14-year-olds now as part of training. Okay.
Probably because they don't talk about it on Fox News.
Right, exactly. So if it's not on Fox News, I guess it doesn't exist. Well, meanwhile, Steve Witkoff, this was on Fox News, actually. Trump's special envoy just spent 3 hours meeting with Putin. So how did it go? Well, President Trump issued this response. My special envoy, Witkoff, just had a highly productive meeting with President Putin. Great progress was made. Is that true? Great progress was made. Is that true? Or is that just spin? Someone who doesn't spin anything is Alexander Mercurius from the Duran, good friend of the show. Very smart individual. He's not into spinning things. Alexander, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
And absolutely delighted to be here again.
So when you look at this, and thank you so much for being here, when you look at this meeting with Witkoff, you've read the readout, at least on the Russian side of things and how it went with the Russian side. The White House saying great progress was made. Alexander, in 24 hours, are we going to be celebrating a ceasefire and peace in Ukraine, or is this just more spin?
Well, the Russians are not telling us extremely little, and they're making it very clear that nothing has been agreed. So we don't have a ceasefire, and we're not going to have a ceasefire within the next 24 hours, and we shouldn't expect one. What the Russians have been trying to do, right from the moment that Trump became president, is to establish and maintain and preserve a dialogue with the United States and with him personally. That seems to me their entire objective here. And that's, I think, all that they have agreed to up to now. Now, there are people in the United States who perhaps want to hope that more has been agreed than that. There's stories that a summit meeting between Trump and Putin might be about to be prepared and might happen as soon as next week. That Trump wants that he's going to try and bring Zelensky along as well. There's no word of any of this from Moscow.
Now, you and I were both hopeful. I think that when Donald Trump got in, he was promising, within 24 hours, this would all stop. It's well past 100 days in office now. The mainstream media is now labeling this Trump's war. Forget Biden. This is now Trump's war. He had an opportunity to end it. NATO is doubling down. We're sending weapons. We're sending more money and munitions and everything else to NATO to continue this forever. It seems like it's going to be a forever proxy war. Where do you think things stand right now? Will we see an end to this war in the next year or in the next few months?
Well, I think you've described the situation extremely well. I think there were a lot of expectations, a lot of hopes when Donald Trump came in that he would, if he didn't end the war itself, he would at least end America's involvement in the war. He's spoken out very critically against it. It looked as if that was what his political base was expecting. And I think a lot of people were expecting that he would try to distance the United States from the war. Instead, what he did was that he sought not to end the conflict, the war, but basically to freeze it, to try to get the Russians, who are winning the war, to stop. And the Russians are saying, no, we're not going to stop, because if we just stop in the way that you want us to, then the war hasn't really ended, and all of the problems that brought it about are still there. And we are going to see the war return. And Trump has never at any time up to now addressed that. He's never come to terms with this Russian concern. And the result is that the war has continued, and gradually, inexorably, inevitably, it has become his war. And we're back basically to seeing a lot of him doing a lot of the very same things that his predecessor, Joe Biden, used to do and which he used to criticize. So unless there's a sudden change on Trump's part, unless Trump decides that he's going to start taking these Russian concerns, which led to the war, seriously, then I don't really see how the war can stop until we get a military outcome, which, by the way, is what a lot of people in Russia would prefer to see.
So I want to ask you about the military side of this, something you know very well, the strategy, tactics, and what's going to happen now. Like it's August. I just checked the forecast for Kharkiv in Ukraine. And it is quite warm, 80 degrees today, overnight 57 degrees. But as you know, these nights are going to start to get colder very fast in Ukraine. And the lack of soldiers on the front line for Ukraine is going to be a light shined on that very brightly, very, very soon as we head into this frozen winter with supplies and everything else and a lack of soldiers. Militarily, what do you see happening as we head into the fall?
Well, can I just turn to that topic that you discussed before about the fact that Ukraine is now recruiting old men and very young people and people with, disabilities, which they are. They absolutely are. The reason they are obliged to do that is because 3.5 years of relentless attrition, which is what this war has been. The Russians have waged this war as a war of attrition, is now having its effect. Ukraine is running out of soldiers. It is unable to hold the entire front line. It's unable to conduct offensives anymore or counterattacks. It's running short of weapons and supplies. It simply can't hold its positions for very, very much longer. And everybody who has been following the war closely understands this. And it's concerning that President Trump says that he doesn't, given that he's the president of the United States and the main decision maker. So what that means is we're in August. We've still got several months of fighting weather, if you like, until the autumn when the rains begin and everything turns to, the conditions become very muddy and it's very difficult to move. So we've got several months until mid-October. The Russians are now battering against Ukraine's major defense lines. These are a line of towns in western Donbass that they have now reached. If they break through this line in that time, and most people feel that they probably will, then they've broken through the main Ukrainian defense lines. And at that point, the situation for Ukraine will become a situation of crisis. It will be, the question there will be whether Ukraine will be able to continue to hold positions west of the Dnieper River. If the Russians reach the Dnieper by, say, midwinter, then the war, in my opinion, is over, because Ukraine would cease to be a viable state. If the Russians were at the Dnieper, which is the center of Ukraine, right in the middle of its main remaining industrial and urban areas, it would not be able to sustain the battle beyond that. So that is how close we are to a decision in the war.
I mean, I'm not being hyperbolic here, but when you said that it's over for Ukraine if they break through, I got chills.
Yes.
Because to me, it seems inevitable. I think anyone who's been watching this like you for a number of years now, it seems inevitable. Unless, of course, there is some sort of variable involved, which is NATO. How do you see NATO allowing this to happen, allowing Ukraine to fall in this way, Russia to advance through those towns? up to the Dnieper?
There is an enormous amount of secret panic here. I mean, not particularly secret, just under the surface, because of course the whole question now is finding some means to stop the Russians doing those things. Because you're absolutely right, the Russians will achieve this. It may take them a bit longer than I expect, or it may take them less time than I expect, but they will break through these defense lines. They will reach the Dnieper. NATO understands how dangerous for Ukraine that is, and what a crisis that would be, not just for Ukraine, but for NATO, for the whole position in the of the West in Europe. So what do? They have various options. One is to persuade the Russians to stop and to agree to some kind of ceasefire. The Russians have said yes, but they've set out their terms. And the problem is that the West up till now, the United States, Donald Trump, has not been prepared to accept those terms. The second is to try to turn the tide, to give Ukraine more weapons, to escalate the war itself, to launch attacks against Russia with long-range missiles. I don't think anybody who's followed the situation closely thinks that can work either. Then there's the attempt that we've been seeing play out over the last few weeks, Donald Trump's attempts to try to intimidate Russia's trading partners, India, China, Brazil, the BRICS states, to stop trading with Russia. The assumption is that then the Russian economy will collapse, and that will force the Russians to stop. I think that is wrong at multiple levels. First of all, I don't think these countries are going to play along in that way. Secondly, even if they did, I think that misunderstands certain facts about the Russian economy, which it would take a long time to explain here. I think it would not be enough to stop the Russians. The last thing in that case would be to try and intervene militarily. That would bring us straight into World War III. There is no appetite for that in Europe. I don't think there is any appetite for that of the people in the United States either. There are a few very, very troubled and dangerous people, unfortunately, in positions of power, who might want it. My own view is that in the end, it won't happen. So the only question then is, can we find a diplomatic solution to end the war, which will preserve Ukraine, or will we instead get a military one in which the Russians will have won and there will be nothing of Ukraine left?
As a friend of the show, Colonel Douglas Macgregor likes to say, make peace now, you fools. Because the alternative is absolutely devastating.
He's absolutely
Ukraine, yeah.
He's absolutely right. He's got it exactly right. By the way, I don't know whether he's told you this, but he's quoting a very, very famous German general, Marshal Rundstedt, who said this, those very same words to a key official at Hitler's headquarters in July 1944, after the Allies landed in Normandy. Rundstedt said to this general, can you let me do this? Can you let me do that? And the person from Hitler's headquarters said, no, you can't do any of these things. But what can we do? And Rundstedt said, make peace, you fools. What else can you do? And of course, they didn't listen to that advice. And Douglas Macgregor, who's a brilliant historian of military history, far better than me, well, he can describe to you what the outcome of that was.
Right. They didn't. We had the destruction of Europe as a result. Alexander, great to see you. As always, thank you so much. Sobering assessment of what's going on there. Make peace now, you fools. Alexander, thank you so much. Check everything out at theduran.com, his daily broadcast there, and the great team from the Duran. Thanks as always, Alexander.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
God bless. Thank you.
All right, he was fantastic. Coming up, we're going to talk to Pastor Douglas Wilson about what is Christian Zionism and what does it mean when these politicians say we're Christian, that's why we support Israel. I've been really keen to speak to him, so we're going to get to that shortly. But first, we want to remind you that Redacted is brought to you by Optimizers. Are you tired of feeling tired? Do you always hit snooze when your alarm goes off? Well, there's a lot of things that can be handled by supplementing your diet with magnesium. Magnesium Breakthrough has 7 different types of essential magnesium. And in fact, I took my son to the pediatrician recently, and since he suffers migraines, she asked me what type of magnesium does he take, and I told her about this one. She looked in the ingredients and she said, that's amazing because yes, he needs a very varied types of magnesium in order to treat him, and he takes this every day. In fact, all of us do. So imagine having the strength and energy to get out of bed every morning and face the day boldly. Magnesium can help you with pretty much every health function. So check it out for yourself. For an exclusive offer, go to buyoptimizers.com/redacted. Use the code redacted during checkout to save 15%. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you'll make sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. So again, use the code redacted when you head on over to buyoptimizers.com/redacted. Save 15% at checkout and make sure you subscribe and tell them Redacted sent you. Buyoptimizers.com/redacted. Well, my next guest says that Christians should put their faith in no man-made government and has been critical of neoconservative foreign policy and very skeptical of this Israel as a sacred cow rhetoric. His book, Mere Christendom, is one of the most, I want to call it the most erudite arguments for Christianity that I've ever read. It pushed me, which is why I've been really looking forward to speaking with Douglas Wilson for a long time. Now, we are in a time when most politicians tell us that we have to support Israel because of the Bible, and I would like to understand how people of faith interpret that into an excuse for war. He warned about politicians putting themselves and their politics over God and the Bible. Now, this week, many self-professed Christians visited Israel and told us they have to support Israel because the Bible says so. Recently, Ted Cruz told Tucker Carlson this, and Tucker asked him, is the Israel in the Bible the same as this man-run government? And here is how Ted Cruz fumbled that ball.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of it, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis, but... So you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Well, hold on. Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what? Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
Okay. Now, Pastor Wilson, I'm very excited to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on Redacted. I want to see if I understood your book correctly. So I have a few questions, and if you'll forgive me, I'm going to keep talking before I hand it over to you. As I understand your writings, you warn that a moral society requires Christianity because if there's no God above the state becomes the God, and we are then a slave to the state. So it feels to me like politicians are playing out their will in the name of God. And I think that from my observation, there are two categories of Christian Zionists, the ones that sort of blindly follow Trump and those who believe that there's a biblical mandate to support Israel because of the Bible. You call this a syncretism. I've never heard this word before, so I put up the definition. It's the blending of two belief systems, like politics and religion. So can we please deal with that in this order? And now I will let you talk and again say how happy I am to talk to you. And maybe you can tell us, what is Christian Zionism and is it in fact biblical? Oh, you're muted. Is he muted on purpose, guys?
There we go.
Yep,
So,
gotcha.
good to be with you. It's Christian Zionism is a particular theological construct that grows out of dispensationalism. Dispensationalism teaches that there is a prophetic role still to be played by Israel as an ethnic entity, right? So dispensationalists regard the founding of Israel in 1948 as resetting the prophetic clock, so that a lot of the prophecies that are contained in the Old Testament will now start coming true now that Israel has returned to the land. Okay, so they believe that Israel had a right to return to that territory simply because they were Jews. Okay, so God promised Abraham that territory, and so the Jews had the right to go back to that territory. So that's a theological argument for the Israelis to have that territory. But I want to make a distinction between Christian Zionism, or any form of Zionism, actually, and the de facto reality of Israel there now. And the way I illustrate that is, I don't agree with the 19th century doctrine of manifest destiny at all, right? The idea that the United States was inevitably going to march toward the Pacific Ocean. The continent was ours by right. Everybody with eyes in their head could see that this was our manifest destiny. So I don't agree with that doctrine at all, but I live in Idaho, right? So my de facto presence in Idaho is, I'm here because somebody 150 years ago believed in manifest destiny, even though I don't, right?
You didn't do it.
I didn't do it. And
we
here
all
I am.
live with the consequences of former governments. That's why we live in these places.
Correct.
We can't be blamed for them.
So someone could say, and I find myself in this position, I'm not a Christian Zionist at all, because Reformed covenantal theology, which I adhere to, holds that the church, the Christian church, is Israel now. This is disparaged sometimes. It's sometimes called replacement theology, but it's the idea that the church is the heir of all the promises of the Old Testament. So, and the New Testament has a great controversy. Do you have to become a Jew in order to become a Christian? The Jerusalem Council in Acts 15 just said, no, you don't, which opened the door wide to Gentiles coming into the new Commonwealth of Israel. Now, over time, the new Israel became predominantly Gentile, and those Jews who believed in Christ as the Messiah were gradually assimilated into this new heavily Gentile church. And the Jews who retained their Jewish identity did so by maintaining a stiff resistance against believing Jesus as the Messiah. In the 19th century, this belief, this dispensational theology developed, and actually the Balfour Declaration, which was Lord Balfour of the United Kingdom, made this declaration in a letter to a Jewish emissary, and he basically created the idea of Jews returning to their homeland, to their ancient homeland. So but in the Bible, you always have Jews returning to the Lord first, and then to the land. And the modern state, the modern state of Israel is secular. It's not a religious state; it's a secular state, and that creates all kinds of interesting challenges. And they've got the ultra Orthodox Jews there in Israel who are. They have the swing vote in many elections because that's what the parliamentary system does. So they have a lot of outsized influence, but the state itself is a secular state, and that puts an interesting spin on everything. So someone might support the right of Israel to defend itself, which I do, without dragging the promise to Abraham into it.
Right. And so it seems like that they have a type of syncretism, if I say that word right, that we have, which is this confusion that your politicians are representing your religion. You warn about this at politicians people who see politicians as Jesus or as their religion. I brought this clip from your book. You said if you have a flag with Jesus on it and Jesus is wearing a MAGA hat, then you're guilty of this syncretism. You need to topple these deities. And so it's a lot like what's happening here, is that people just have this blind allegiance to Trump, and so they will support the war if he says so. The same that happens.
When I saw the clip of, looking at the clip of Mike Johnson that you showed and Ted Cruz, it's just very clear that they grew up in a dispensational context where they simply say support for Israel is biblically mandated. Well, in every Israeli election, half of the Israeli population doesn't support Israel. They're divided just like we are, and a lot of the people. This is one of the places where I thought that Tucker was playing hardball and a little unfair with Cruz, because Cruz was wanting to say you support Israel, and Tucker was saying you have to support the government of Israel. No, I could. Even if I were a Christian Zionist, I might be appalled at the next Israeli prime minister that was elected and think that, so I might be opposed to the government of Israel while supporting the long-term health of Israel. And someone who supports Israel's right to defend itself on practical grounds doesn't have to support the current administration of Israel at all. Or a particular policy that they're pursuing in Gaza or the West Bank or anything like that.
So you take them at their word for it, because I guess when I hear them saying this, I hear they're playing politics because they want a war. But you think that it's sincere. They think that this is a real biblical interpretation.
Oh, yeah. So you have to understand that North American evangelicalism is overwhelmingly dispensational. It's just part of the wallpaper of the Christian mind in North America. So I don't think that they were being insincere in what they were saying at all. Now, they may support war or support what Israel's doing on other grounds in addition, but I would have no grounds for questioning the sincerity of those statements at face value, because there are millions of Christians in North America who would talk just like that, who that sounded very familiar. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, so what do you make of young people rejecting Christian Zionism or thinking that this does not, it should not come with a foreign policy agenda? We see collapse among young people who support this war, who maybe they can see the difference between politics and religion, whereas an older generation cannot. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so if you have a decent policy or a sane policy that rests upon a false premise, when the false premise gives way, then a lot of things might give way with it. So I believe that young people, even young ostensible conservatives, are coming of age politically in the post-COVID world. And there are a lot of people who have come to the conclusion that I need to not believe anything any government official is telling me. Right?
Yeah.
Basically,
it's a smart place to start.
I would say that's a good baseline. As long as you're not bitter or cynical or full of malice, it's a good idea to stop believing the government. Over the last 5 years, virtually every American institution that used to command high levels of trust has discredited itself, whether it's the universities or the Center for Disease Control or the military or the intelligence agencies. I mean, it's just been one face plant after another. And so consequently, a lot of young people it's like they're in free fall. All the supports that enabled previous generations to feel at least oriented or secure in where they were, all of that's gone. And and about the only thing they have is some guy they found on the internet. And so consequently, they're blown. I think their temptation is going to be blown about by every wind of doctrine, because Chesterton didn't say this, but he should have. If a man doesn't stand for something, he'll fall for anything. And I think that's the position that many people are in, and the establishment let them down, basically. And if you want people to quit chasing after conspiracy theories, I would say to the establishment, well, then stop telling lies.
Right. But your book makes the point that no man-run government can ever be put before your God or Jesus Christ. They must be in service to God. And we don't have that, but we do have young people turning to Christianity more. So could we spin this in any kind of positive way, saying they no longer believe in these man-made structures, so they're looking for a deity above that, and maybe they're finding it and rejecting man-made structures, so maybe there's hope in the young people.
No, I do think it's hopeful. I do think it's a good thing. I just think that if you look at the last 2,000 years of church history, almost all good things were incredibly messy. Right?
Right.
Good things does not mean fluffy clouds and unicorns and rainbows. Good things are often tumultuous and challenging, and courage is required, and hard study, and so I think I think we're in that kind of a position now. And some people, there have been great reformations and revivals in the past, and some people destroyed themselves in it, and some people found their way in it. And I'm trusting God that He's writing a good story. I'm fond of saying that God draws straight with crooked lines, and He uses broken people. I think He cares for us. And so consequently, a lot of the young people who are turning back to the church, turning back to Christ, or are searching, they're searchers, I think that's an opportunity that people who are established Christians should take full advantage of. And but the main thing that I would say is don't follow haters. Right? Don't follow haters. Find people who preach and teach from the Bible, who know how to build community and live in community, who, even if they differ with some particular policy, they're not consumed with venom or animosity. I'd like to talk about MANA, M-A-N-A, make America normal again.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate your interpretation. I've been, like I said, looking forward to speaking with you since I read your book, and I really liked it. And so I have so many more highlights that maybe you can come back and talk to me about some other time.
If you want to pursue this further, I did write another book called American Milk and Honey, and it's on the whole Israel thing, Americanism, Zionism, the whole deal, and it's a challenging subject. Not an easy one, but I do think the Bible teaches on the subject directly. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk with y'all.
I'll read it and come back to you. Please come back.
All right. Good. Blessings.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, let us know what you think.
Fascinating.
Of that. Yes, indeed. Very fascinating. Okay, we have more news to get to. We're going to talk about UFO.
By the way, I should just point, a lot of people in our chat room are like, man, this guy is smart. They're like, at first, like, I wasn't sure. And then like, man, he is one smart guy. He knows his stuff. I'm a fan now. So,
indeed. And I have a lot of, it's an existential crisis for me reading his book.
Did you just have a stroke?
I might have. Because he makes clear in early in this book, this is for evangelicals. And I'm like, well, I'm not that, but I want to know what he has to know. And I want more of that. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with this, but I'm a seeker. I am in a constant state of aporia, which means you don't know what you don't know, and you're willing to have your beliefs broken down It's exhausting.
I feel like the more I read, the more I study, the more I talk to whistleblowers and insiders, sometimes I feel like the less I know,
Yes.
Like the next subject we're going to talk about, Jeremy Corbell, UFO researcher, filmmaker, warned us all back in January, or I think it was February, that the lie they were going to tell us is that a large interstellar UFO, an extraterrestrial craft, is going to be heading towards Earth. It would be an existential threat for all of us. He said it would be a big lie, that we need to prepare for it. I've heard this from multiple other insiders over the past year, to be aware that this is the strategy and lie they would tell all of us. What is the goal in all of this? Well, just like that, on cue, now there's a large interstellar craft of some kind heading towards Earth. It's called 3I Atlas. And we're going to talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at Hillsdale College, because if you are also a lifelong learner, also like me, in a constant state of aporia, wondering, what is it I don't know? I'm willing to break down my beliefs and learn new things. Well, then you can become a Hillsdale education enthusiasts. When you hear people say, well, that's unconstitutional, how do you really know? Well, you can take courses such as the free online course called The Federalist. The Federalist Papers were written by two of America's most important founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, and together they explain what actually was the purpose of the Constitution. What were they trying to do, so that you can use that term in an educated way, break down your knowledge of it and build it from the ground up. And today it's our responsibility to pay attention to these kind of things. They have many courses just like that, more than 40 free online courses, a course in C.S. Lewis, the stories in the book of Genesis, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic. All of these are free to you. They are self-guided. You take them whenever you'd like, and they come at no cost to you. So enroll. If you want the Federalist course, you can go to online.hillsdale.edu. It's a long, online.hillsdale.edu/courses/promo/The Federalist. That's what they would like you to, if you can find that on your own, or just go to hillsdale.edu/redacted to
that's easier.
enroll.
That other URL seems like I'd have to get a college education just to remember it.
I know, exactly. You can find it. Just go to the redacted one. That way they know that you're a redacted viewer, and they will know what you're interested in, and they know that you, redacted member, are super interested in learning. So go to hillsdale.edu/redacted to enroll it for free. hillsdale.edu/redacted.
I'm going to take a college course on remembering URLs.
Yeah, or just beaming them to you from my mind.
Oh my gosh. I'll never forget one of my first jobs when I worked at Fox back in the day, back in year 2000. I was a producer at Good Day LA in Los Angeles. And we were just started doing mentioning new interesting websites, because the web was new. And as a producer, I remember talking to the hosts of the show, Steve Edwards and Dorothy and all of this. And I said, hey, here's the website I want you all to remember. And here was this fun website. So they did a story about the website, and I didn't know at the time that people, when they're listening to a show, can't remember a URL.
Yeah.
So I put www. In the script. And it was Z1527. So the hosts read it out. It was and Steve Edwards made fun of it. He goes, what the hell is this URL? What is this? And it was this long 30-character URL that no one could possibly have written down or remembered. Anyway,
yeah.
Note to self. Okay. All right. Let's talk about UFOs. Let's talk about interstellar craft. So is 3I Atlas a space rock? Is it an alien craft? Now, you'll recall back in January, Jeremy Corbell, UFO documentarian, filmmaker, researcher, obviously been to Capitol Hill. He's met with all of these people. He warned all of us that the lie they were going to tell coming forward now was that we would be visited by some large interstellar craft, would be heading towards Earth. It would be extraterrestrial in origin, and we better batten down the hatches, get ready for it. I don't know, turn over all of our biometrics, give up all of our freedom, all of that. That's what was coming. He said it would be a big lie, get ready for it. And then just on cue, just a few short months later, sure enough, now reports are 3I Atlas heading towards Earth on sort of a collision course of sorts. Here's the Daily Mail. Mysterious interstellar object aiming at Earth is not natural. as scientists rule out comet theory. Now, that headline could be construed as misleading because hundreds of scientists have come forward and physicists have said that this is a comet. It is natural. Then you have Harvard scientist Avi Loeb saying there's no tail on this thing, and therefore it's not natural, it's not a comet. Sounds similar to the Philip, can you help me out with this? Even though I know how to...
Oumuamua.
Oumuamua. The Hawaiian name, Oumuamua. You remember that from a number of years ago, that long, like cigar-shaped craft that was sort of giving off weird signals and heading towards Earth in some capacity. Oumuamua. So this is the third in that series now. Here's some images. Here's what Dr. John Brandenburg wrote. 3I Atlas is not a comet. Comets are dirty snowballs of ices and silicate dusts, usually dominated by water ice, but also more volatile ices like CO, which vaporize beyond Jupiter. The 2I Borisov, which was the second one in this, displayed this. Oumuamua did not. 3I Atlas is now emulating the latter, so similar to Oumuamua. Be alert, he says. Well, Ron James, Media Relations Director for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, is joining us now. He's also the creator of the film Accidental Truth. And, of course, Ron has to deal with all of these reports that come in at MUFON and then goes out and actually investigates the veracity of these claims. Ron, great to have you here on the show for the first time. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me on. I'm a real fan.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I've been a fan of MUFON for a very long time, going back to my childhood. So it's great to have you on here. So you know Jeremy Corbell's comments in early part of the year about being warned about this lie that's being perpetrated. Then you have Avi Loeb from Harvard and others now saying that this is clearly not this is not natural. This is not a comet. What are you guys at MUFON dealing with on this subject right now? Can you help us parse this?
Well, you know, MUFON is dedicated to the scientific understanding of the phenomenon. And what we're looking at here is we've got Avi Loeb and we've got John Brandenburg, both of whom I've spent time with and I respect a lot. But there is not a great deal of other opinions that are lining up to promote this as some kind of unnatural item that's coming through the galaxy. So NASA is still billing it as a comet. There are some unusual aspects to it, certainly, but there's nothing definitive that could make us say, yes, we support the idea that this is an artificial craft at this time. But we can't disallow it either.
Yeah, we can't just allow it. But others are saying, disallow it. Exactly. You're right. So then what do you make of Avi Loeb's comments on this? I'm hearing from other insiders and physicists and friends who are saying that this is definitely just a rock. Like, what would be the motivation for Avi Loeb to be saying that this is some sort of an alien tech that's heading our way? Like, what's the motivation? And maybe you could tie this to what Jeremy Corbell was warning us about. Like, what's the motivation for lying to us if it is a lie?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Avi has made his way into the limelight with these kinds of claims. It started with the Oumuamua that he claimed was potentially an unnatural craft, and then he raised some money and went and pulled magnets across the bottom of the ocean, trying to recover items from under the ocean from a meteorite, which we still don't have the complete data on that yet. And now this new phenomenon is something that he's also calling attention to, the idea that there's some unusual characteristics about it that could potentially point to an artificial origin. And all of that is perfectly fine, but we do have a history of not claims, because he doesn't claim that this stuff is fact, but we do have a history of him calling attention to things that remain inconclusive. Now, nothing against Avi. I respect his work a lot. And as a Harvard astronomer, it took a lot of courage for him to come forward with some of these ideas, and they may yet prove to be true. And then with Jeremy Corbell and what he said about us being deceived by the claim of an extraterrestrial spaceship coming toward Earth, I've been talking to the same people in Washington that he has. I travel in some of the same circles in D.C. And also there's a researcher named Richard Dolan who put out a book and series about false flag operations. And one of them was called Project Bluebeam. The idea that we would be faked out about alien craft coming for the purpose of reshaping society and anything else they could do while they had us under control. Jeremy's kind of espousing that same sort of principle. A false flag operation, in my opinion, is not a likely scenario, because in this day and age, you could have video of a flying saucer hovering over a city. Nobody's going to believe it. They're going to think it's all fake. And so I think if they tell us something's coming, it's going to be because something's coming. And I think that might have a lot more to do with why we're getting this limited disclosure from Washington, D.C., is because there is a time limit on how long they have to get the information out to the public. And so we're dealing with this right now.
What are you hearing about this October 29th timeline? That come October 20, I think it's 29th, maybe I'm wrong about this, something is going to happen. Like we're getting close to, maybe it's some sort of a limited disclosure, some larger scale disclosure. You heard President Trump asked about a couple of questions about the massive drone sightings over the East Coast last year. Tulsi Gabbard says that she's seen these documents, and I think she claims that the veracity of these documents, she can't talk about them, but that they are real. And the fall, right? It's perfect in time for Halloween, right? What do you make of that?
Well, we always get these deadlines and timelines. We had it in 2012 for, a major example. So there's always these times in the not too distant future where something major is supposed to happen. I have not heard anything inside of Washington, D.C., and I talked to a lot of the people that you see on TV, the Congress people involved. I haven't heard anything that says there's some kind of definitive date. Now, that being said, the managers of this information that have been keeping it a secret from people for almost 100 years now, they understand that at some point they've got to let the cat out of the bag. But how they do that is up for debate. What we've seen is that since 2017, they've tried to seize control of the narrative and parade out a few select people to tell us a few select facts. Because if the whole truth were to come out in some kind of catastrophic disclosure, the people that would be accountable for the fact that they've hidden this from humanity for all this time, and the potential crimes against humanity that come from, say, for instance, covering up a new alternative energy or covering up technology that could have taken humanity in a whole different direction, these people would have some explaining to do. So what we're seeing is this understanding that they're going to have to tell us something. At the same time, they're trying to protect themselves and their industry partners from what really would be an awful lot of accountability. And we're seeing this play out in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think maybe that's what's going on with the moon politics right now. I want to get to that in a second, because I sit in the camp that, we've had our friend of the show, Ashton Forbes, on multiple times, but others I've spoken to about free energy, that it exists, that we know it exists. Why are we still paying electric bills? Why are we still paying for all of this gasoline? We have teleportation technology, all of these things. So I sit firmly in that camp from the people that I've spoken to, and I'm sure.
Well, just remember the people that were paying this stuff to, people we're paying the electric bills to, and the people we're buying the gas from, they're the ones that are in charge. And so as long as, if there's any kind of a threat that would dethrone them from running the planet and controlling the population, they're going to do everything they can to delay or even stop that from happening. So, right. It's a sad fact of human nature, but the people that are in charge are not the most caring people on the planet.
Right, exactly. They want to protect these interests. I mean, you see it in the biopharmaceutical complex that's, RFK Jr. is trying to fight against as much as he can. So they own and control Washington, and they basically control the pocketbooks of those people that are in charge in Congress as well. I want to talk about the moon politics, because I think it's tied to all of this. So you saw these stories over the past 48 hours. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who's now, I think he's acting NASA administrator, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. He's interim NASA administrator. He announced we're building a nuclear reactor on the moon. And we already know that DARPA contract with Northrop Grumman to build a giant railway system on the moon. To me, this is me talking. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is all total BS. And it's a total cover story for the fact that we've had a moon base for decades. Those in the know in the secret space program know that we have a moon base. I've talked to insiders in the U.S. Air Force and others who've been to the moon base multiple times. So they think we're stupid. They think we're absolutely stupid. So I spoke to an insider this morning who told me, so what do you make of this story? What do you make of this nuclear reactor story on the moon, this now partnership with Lockheed Martin to build nukes on the moon, all this stuff? And what this insider told me was, I believe they're getting ready to transfer the current moon assets that are used in the secret space program over to NASA and now Space Force as part of this sort of disclosure project that it's been there for decades. Now they're just giving us a cover story to kind of put it out there in the open. What do you make of that? Do you think that's true or false?
Well, the best way to parade something out to the public and say it's been there for a long time and they didn't want to let anybody know about it is to create a construction project and say, oh, yeah, we just built that. And so what better way to disclose and again, cover their accountability than to just include the presence of these in some new project? And, you know, the moon has always been a mystery. There's no good explanation for where it came from. There's no good explanation for how it manages this geosynchronous orbit that it's in. And there's all kinds of questions about the moon and its true origins and what the astronauts encountered on the moon. So, and then there's helium-3, which is a huge resource that could change the whole energy infrastructure of the planet. So there's a lot of reasons to put a power plant on the moon, and there's a lot of reasons to do these projects so that they can come clean about what's been there the whole time. So I agree with you.
Can you talk more about helium-3 and explain to our audience what this is and why it's so important?
I'm not a scientific person to discuss helium-3 itself, but helium-3 is something that occurs on the moon. It's very rare on Earth. And apparently it can generate energy through new ways of energy generation that make it super efficient and extremely volatile. And it's capable of producing great amounts of energy for very small quantities of the substance. And so getting helium-3 from the moon and bringing it down to Earth could change the whole energy infrastructure on the planet.
Do you think we're heading for full disclosure anytime soon?
I think we're never going to get full disclosure. There's never going to be a time where these guys come forward and say, okay, look, here's what happened back in the 30s. Here's everything that has been done since then. Here's all the records. Here's all the pictures. Here's all the secret programs. Here's all the messed up things we've done to humanity. They're never going to give us that. We're going to get... My prediction is that at some point soon, we're going to get some sort of acknowledgement that they've found positive signs of life, maybe on Mars or somewhere like that. And it's going to slowly evolve into more and more disclosure. But there's never going to be a time when somebody comes forward and tells us 100% of the truth, because it's just, it's not something they can disclose. Too many heads are going to roll.
Yeah, I agree. I'll get you out of here on this, which is the dark side of the moon. You know, I'm not just a huge Pink Floyd fan, but I am fascinated about both the moon base, of course. And again, we've spoken to multiple insiders, secret space program individuals who've been to the moon base through a jump room. You call it a Stargate, you know, et cetera. But I bet at MUFON, you guys have dealt with maybe hundreds, maybe thousands, I don't know, cases of, like, you know, amateur astronomers or even not so amateur astronomers who are using maybe their own high-powered telescopes, not like the Jason telescope I had as a little kid, but, you know, slightly larger, Orion size, whatever telescopes. And they've captured, I mean, countless craft landing in craters, you know, moving from craters, moving around to the dark side of the moon. Can you talk about that, what you guys have in maybe your database at MUFON?
Well, we certainly have a collection of reports about things being sighted on and around the moon. Obviously, nobody can see the dark side of the moon because it stays facing away from Earth. But there is a lot of records of reports and military reports and military witnesses that go back a long time. We just got the diaries of a UFO investigator from the 50s named Leonard Stringfield, and contained in his diaries are firsthand accounts of people that actually had interactions with these craft going to the moon, interviews with the astronauts that said they saw things on the moon. The moon is a big mystery in so many ways. The idea that it's an artificial satellite that may be here to surveil Earth, that it might even be hollow, none of these have been debunked. And so although we can't prove it at this point, I think that the more we find out about the moon, the more it's going to answer a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's very fascinating why the moon doesn't rotate in the way that maybe other celestial bodies do with this weird synchronous rotation.
It doesn't.
So that
and what it's made of and what it's comprised of and where it originated and how there's so many coincidences, like the moon is the same size as the sun during an eclipse. All kinds of things like that kind of play into the astronauts. There's tapes of them saying that they were being surveilled by craft while they were on the moon. So,
I mean, that's an amazing, for anyone who's like, this is all BS, that's garbage. We have audio of the astronauts in the Apollo missions telling Houston that they're witnessing craft, and they had to switch over, if I'm not mistaken, from the public audio channel to the health private channel. They were taking their conversation private because they didn't want people to be spooked, but they were seeing craft on the craters where they were landing. Am I wrong?
No, that's absolutely true. And, I thought it was really funny. I was at the last UFO hearings, and Mr. Gold from NASA actually said that NASA was the most transparent organization he's ever been in. And if you listen very closely to the tape of the hearings, you hear somebody bust out laughing. And that was me in the back of the room because I just couldn't contain myself. NASA has covered up more facts about this whole phenomenon than any front-facing group, and they still continue to do it.
Oh, unbelievable. Well, it's been a real treat having you here, Ron. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll come back. Don't be a stranger, and we need more transparency in that. I love that you were the one laughing about NASA's the most transparent.
Yeah, people were pointing at me going, oh, but I just couldn't stop myself.
Too funny. Ron, great to see you. Thank you so much, and yeah, people should check out MUFON. If you guys want to dive into the files that MUFON has, the largest database in the world on these,
we've been studying this since the 1950s, and we've got members all over the world that investigate UFOs, and there's always chances for people to get involved. And so, yeah, we definitely welcome anybody.
Wonderful. Ron, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. All right. Let me know what you guys think of that. I mean, you know where I stand on it, so... Philip, I know you've been tracking this quite a bit. You've been watching the physics around Oumuamua and all of these 3I and people think it's called 31, but it's 3I. Yeah.
No, it stands for Third Interstellar Object. So it's 3I Atlas. Its name changed once they first discovered it, they didn't know what it was. So it had one name designation. And then when it was a comet, they had another name designation once they've determined, or at least they're saying that it's an interstellar object, then it became 3I, the third interstellar object named Atlas.
Anthony Z does in our chat room says, Clayton is a smart guy, but whenever it comes to the moon or space, he turns into a retard and just believes it for some reason. I think I just did a whole segment on debunking it. I don't know if you were paying attention, but the whole segment was about they're putting forth this idea that this is some large interstellar craft, and I was pretty much saying that I don't understand the agenda. Why are they trying to scare us about this? So I think I didn't believe it.
Because they tried that with Oumuamua. I mean, that was a big thing with Oumuamua, was they were like, oh, look, it's acting weird, it's slowing down, it's doing all this, and it's like, no, none of that ended up tracking. It was just a big weird shaped rock that, so that was...
Yeah, and that it was emitting some weird signal too, right?
Yeah, there was a bunch of like when they first discovered like Oumuamua, there was a lot of ideas of what it was going on out there that most of them didn't track.
For me, it's kind of obvious because like if you look at like they're putting out this propaganda now for Space Force, these recruitment videos and stuff like that, and it's because like with these fears, these aren't things anybody can verify. So it's a way for them to get blank checks to fight things that are going to be coming from space that they can just hide more money.
Right. Yeah. And we can't check it. So as journalists, can you send me as part of a delegation to the moon so I can,
where are all the TikTok videos of people witnessing?
Yeah. A friend of the show, Ryan Matta, right now, he is in Madagascar. He is there because they received like hundreds of millions of dollars in USAID funding. He's there in Madagascar checking the veracity of those claims. Like, where did this money go? Is it being used actually to help? And it was supposed to go to help feed children, but none of it did. Like, it all went to line the pockets of these Democratic donors and these party politicians and so forth. So Like, he can go there and check that. Friend of the show, Dan Cohen, can go to Haiti and check that, right? But we can't exactly go to the moon and check their claims about now we're going to build a nuclear reactor on the moon. So Anthony Z does. I don't believe there's actually a lot less I believe than you'd believe. I've spoken to insiders I know for a fact who have been to these different locations in the United States, people who've had their lives ruined as a result of coming forward. And if you think about it like a jury, right? Like, you have a jury of your peers. You have a, was it 9-member jury, 12-member jury, 12 angry men, 12. I always get it mixed up with the Supreme Court. So you have 12 members of a jury. They weren't there to witness the murder, but they're going on evidence, right? They're having to make a determination on the evidence. Is there video footage? Is there eyewitness testimony? Is there, do we have physical evidence? Do we have DNA evidence? Whatever it is to convict or not convict somebody. That's the way that this works. So based on the insider testimony I've spoken with, and I've spoken to people who don't want to go on camera, who don't ever want to speak in front of a camera. They've already had their lives ruined privately. They don't need it ruined publicly, who I've spoken with, these insiders who have been a part of the secret space program, who have been to the moon base, whether you like to hear it or not, they've been there. So, based on the evidence, based on the documents that I've seen, based on the eyewitness testimony that I've listened to, that's my assessment of it. So I don't just believe anything. I kind of follow the facts. So
well, and we have Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post and also has the Blue Rocket or whatever. He could send journalists up to verify it for us, and he'd have an upper hand in journalism at that point.
There you go. It could be the Washington Post moon mission.
Well, he'd have to find some actual astronauts, though. I don't think Katy Perry's going to cut it.
Katy Perry reporting from Saturn.
I love the old Norm Macdonald joke. You seen about the astronauts? He's like, they sent these 3 astronauts to the moon. And these guys were amazing. They were, so lucky. And first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong. Second guy, we know their names, Neil Armstrong. Buzz Aldrin gets to walk on the moon. The third guy, we don't even know his name because he didn't get to, he didn't get to go on the moon. His Michael Collins. What a bag of goods he was sold. He gets to go all the way to the moon, and then he doesn't get to go down the little rope ladder onto the moon. He has to stay in the lunar capsule. What a bill of goods he was sold.
I can't imagine just like a worse fate. I'm sure he was excited, but still like sitting in, like laying in bed at night alone with your thoughts being like, damn it, man.
I was this so close.
Nobody knows.
And then he's like looking out the window and he's like, wait, what are these MFers doing out there playing golf? Out there, they got a lunar buggy? They're riding a dune buggy on the moon and I got to stay in the lunar capsule? Man,
maybe he was in there with Maybe he was in there with all the beer. Maybe he didn't mind.
Right. And then it's like Norm Macdonald's joke about then Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin get back in the lunar capsule and like, oh, how was it out there? Was the moon was it amazing? And, they're having to downplay it. Wasn't all it was cracked up to be. I'd rather be here in the lunar module with you. It's warmer. It's cozier. That's not all it's cracked up to be out there. Be happy to be inside the lunar module. I don't know if that were me. I'm sorry. I'd probably have to break protocol, But then how do you get back in? I guess if you're the one that locks the door on the way out, did anyone bring the keys? I would definitely suit up. I'm sorry. I'd be like, I thought Buzz was in trouble. So I suited up and went to go help him. Is that why you did it?
Think about it. If you want to make a name for yourself, be the first person to die on the moon. Just grab that suit and just run out the door and just don't look back, and then they'll remember you forever.
Right. David Pershing in our chat room says, "Yeah, Neil and Buzz got back to the lunar capsule and their toothbrushes tasted like ass." PJ Pickett says, "Come on, Clayton, do Norm's voice. You know you want to." Oh man, Norm Macdonald's the greatest comedian ever lived. Love the guy. I'll on a night I'll just sit and just watch Norm Macdonald clips sometimes. Hey, we're going to hang out just for a few minutes here. Get in your super chats, any kind of comments you want here. Just want to talk, just want to chat. I want to ask your opinion about all of this in just a moment. But first, so excited to share with you guys an incredible scientific breakthrough. And I just ordered my next batch of this, by the way, because I've already gone through my first one, and that's Fatty 15. So Fatty 15 is the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in 90 years. And get this, studies have confirmed that it's 3 times better, broader, and safer than omega-3. What's amazing is, and the Fatty 15's co-founder, Dr. Stephanie Van Watson, discovered C15 as the first essential fatty acid to be found while working with the U.S. Navy to continually improve the health and welfare of aging dolphins. It's pretty simple. Essential nutrients keep our cells healthy, which keeps us healthy. So if you want to get sciencey about it, studies show that C15 actually works by strengthening our cells, improves our mitochondrial function, protecting us against damaging free radicals. The result, better long-term metabolic, liver, and heart health. It ends up many of us are actually deficient in it to begin with. So Fatty 15 is a science-backed, award-winning, vegan-friendly, pure C15 supplement. It replenishes our cells, and it's unbelievable. It has 3 times more cellular benefits than omega-3 or fish oil. It comes in a gorgeous reusable glass bamboo jar. You get your capsules in the mail, you refill it. It's shipped right to your door in quarterly pouches made from recycled materials. So Fatty 15 is on a mission to replenish your C15 levels, restore your long-term health. You can get additional 15% off their 90-day subscription, their starter kit, by going to fatty15.com/redacted and use the code redacted at checkout. fatty15.com/redacted. All right, let's check some super chats and other things that have come in here. Good to see everyone. Wanda Be Normal, thank you for your $5 super chat. Says, all of a sudden, people who don't ever chat repeatedly and furiously start calling BS whenever the MUFON guy is on. Isn't that funny how that works? Like, I always wonder, why is it that part of people's brains just shut down when you talk about things that are like off-world? Do you believe for a second that this is it? Like, we are it? I'll never forget Ainsley Earhart. You remember her from Fox and Friends? She was one of my old co-hosts there. And we were doing like an after the show back when I used to do Fox and Friends. And she said, I don't buy it because I'm busy and I've got a daughter to take care of. And wait. I said, wait a second. So what you're saying is you only believe like we are it because you're busy with a daughter? Like you can't open up that part of your brain to even understand that we're not alone in the universe, that clearly we're not alone? You think in how many galaxies there are and how infinite the universe is that like, this is it? Guy with like a beer belly and graying hair, like this is it? If this is it, we got some problems. I mean, really?
Well, I have trouble jumping to the logic of ruling stuff out. Because I mean, there's a lot of things I don't necessarily think there's evidence that it's like one of my core beliefs. Like a lot of this stuff that comes up, I'm like, well, I don't have any reason to believe that. I don't buy this evidence. However, that does not mean I get to say, therefore, it must not be true, because I don't have any evidence the other way either. So it's like you have to leave the unknown open because you don't know.
Right. So if your worldview, I think that's the thing, right? If someone's worldview is so tied to the notion that this can't be true, and then here's evidence, here's eyewitnesses, here's people who worked on these programs who had their lives ruined afterwards as a result of it, dragged through the mud, people who were mysteriously suicided, whistleblowers that had their lives ruined, people that waited until their deathbed when they were dying of cancer, like Colonel Corso, who worked on these projects for the U.S. government, didn't finally tell his story until he was dying, and other people. So, but who are we to say? I just always so funny to me. It's like people are so willing to be open to a lot of subjects, but when it comes to the fact that our government has been lying to us for decades about our secret space program and the reverse engineering of craft, like that, no, that's too much. That's too much. I mean, what happened to Nikola Tesla, all of Nikola Tesla's work? The guy had discovered etheric energy, that we could literally pull free energy from the atmosphere and power light bulbs. Where did all that information go? Oh, the FBI raided his New York City apartment and took it all. Why don't we have etheric energy?
There was even a Canadian guy that had created a carburetor. It was something like 90. It was like something ridiculously efficient in fuel conservation. And so like it suddenly, like with this carburetor, he had like you could run like 90 miles on a gallon of gas, and he was getting like all these crazy and dudes actually showed up at his place, grabbed all of his research, scared the bejesus out of him, and the guy never picked up his research again. Like I'll have to find that story. I can't remember where I read that. Yeah.
Like basically discovering, and tapping into free energy, and they're suddenly behind bars, and
that wasn't even free energy.
People
that was
suddenly wind up.
That
dead.
was using.
It's a powerful.
That was using conventional.
Energy industry is a powerful industry.
Yeah.
Think how it could be completely upended. The billions of dollars that we spend on all of this energy, to know that there's free energy out there. I mean, it's remarkable. Fatty D McButterpants, thank you for your $2 super chat, says, Fatty15, I'm not affiliated. I love that your screen name is Fatty D McButterpants. See any other super chats here I want to get to. Thank you for your $5 super chat as well. Roderimex says, submarines are already nuclear powered. Roderimex says, nuclear on the moon, at least no American civilians. Yeah, at least there wouldn't be American civilians there. Roderimex, the U.S., China, EU keep military secrets. Most military tech is secret. That's the other thing when people say, and I don't buy it, people are like, the U.S. government, they could never keep secrets. Really? Like Hal Puthoff, for instance, and others who've worked on these programs have said, you wouldn't believe the things that are kept secret that no one knows about, that they've worked on these secret programs. Thank you, Fatty D McButterpants. There it is. But think about just as an example, just think about the Manhattan Project. You had all of these people working on building an atom bomb in the United States. We can keep secrets. We can keep a lot of secrets. Think about all the secrets that were at Area 51. Both the technology that was there from reverse engineering of UFO craft to also the secret boxcar program. The development of the SR-71 Blackbird and all of that stuff. Detailed brilliantly by Annie Jacobson in her book on Area 51. There's plenty of secrets that were kept and that are still being kept from us. Massive underground cities in the United States. The massive hidden underground cities in the United States. Christy Carroll or Christy Carpio says, I wonder if Clayton attends any UFO conventions. No, I've never been to a UFO convention.
So I
was asked to speak at one last year, but it conflicted with something in the family. I'd love to go. I would love to go to, what's the one in the desert? It's called
Burning Man.
It's not called Disclosure in the Desert, right? What's the name of the one in the desert? Can you guys tell me?
Burning Man.
I'm not sure.
Oh, can you guys?
Snowy 71. Thank you for $10 super
Burning
chat.
Man.
No, not Burning Man. Is it called Disclosure in the Desert? What is it? People in our chat room can let us know here. Says Snowy 71. When are you having Michael Yon on again? Dan Cohen on about Haitian nickname barbecue. Forgot his French name. Oh, Jimmy Cherizier. Yeah, in fact, I was talking to Michael. I was texting with Michael 2 days ago, actually. He texted me. He was watching my report on Portugal trying to finally get pushed out illegal immigrants, and he was in Nagasaki. And he was telling me that Portugal, that's basically was the edge of the Portuguese Empire in Nagasaki. So we were having a good chat about that. I'd love to have Michael on. I love Michael.
Okay, Clayton, we're going to try pushing. We're going to try pushing the comments in front of you. Can you see those?
Yeah.
Good enough to read?
Yeah. So is this this one's coming from, so this AMJ99.
This is a Rumble rant.
This is a Rumble one. How can you tell the difference?
See the little green I think green Rumble icon next to it, I believe.
Okay, so if
Next
it's
to his
green, if
name.
it's Rumble, that's from there. Okay.
Yeah, and then red, it would be YouTube, I believe.
Asking everyone in the chat room here, are you believers in
Push
Jesus
another one,
Christ?
Grim.
Yeah, try another one here. Thank you for that, AM. David T. Ogerson. So this one looks like is this a YouTube one?
You know what? I'm not sure.
Or is this
we'll figure
from-
out how to add that
Yeah,
icon.
we'll figure out the
I think Grim
differences
can
here.
add
This
the
is
icon
Twitch.
for each platform.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know. I guess it doesn't matter, but thank you for your $4.99. I've just got done chopping a whole pile of free energy. Do you guys believe in free energy? I mean, do you believe that what Nikola Tesla had discovered and what others have corroborated through tests and so forth? I mean, Sal Pais and others who have patents on this, information. Do you believe that we do have etheric energy, free energy, teleportation, like was used in MH370? Meat Puppet, thank you for your $5 donation. Says there's also a guy who recently found a way to turn plastic into diesel fuel. That guy is now in hiding. That's YouTube. All right,
can you
Grim.
tell?
How can you tell that's YouTube? Got it. Grim handles all of our graphics here at Redacted. He's the genius behind it all. Our look.
Stop it.
He's now a Florida guy. Error 404 says Clayton is half Vulcan. No, it's actually, maybe I am half Vulcan because I can literally only do this with one hand. Isn't that weird? This hand
Yeah,
I
same.
can't do it
Only
with.
my right hand. I can't do it with my left. My pinky goes out to you.
My right hand, I can't do it unless I tie like a piece of string. And but there was somebody on that show, on the original Star Trek, who also couldn't do it. And I don't know if it was William Shatner, but they had to use a little piece of like a string to tie it around. They had to use a piece of like fishing line to hide it because he couldn't do it. Isn't that weird? It's weird that I can only do it with this hand. I can't do it with this hand. Live long and prosper.
Okay, push the next one, Grim. While you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. We're trying to get the whole new system set up. The problem is we're trying to bring all of the chat system together. We've got Rumble, we've got Twitch, we've got Twitter X, we've got YouTube, and trying to pull all of these chats into one nice user interface and also not have it look like crap. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not, for some reason, not wanting to bring in that $10 one, so you may have to read that from.
Oh, Jonathan Hall says, I don't believe in little green men, but I've seen UFOs with my own eyes. NASA is hiding something. They are behind these UFOs. So you believe, like everything UFO related, NASA is involved with in some way. How can you say that, though? How can you say definitively, like, that NASA is involved in all of these UFOs? How can you say that? Because I believe that, yes, probably 90% of what we're seeing, even if it is doing unbelievable maneuvers, like maybe with the Tic Tac, the USS Nimitz case, may very well have been some sort of off-the-books black project, reverse-engineered craft. But to say that everything is NASA related, I mean, I think that maybe to me sounds like a bridge too far. What are these little hands floating around the screen now?
I just added emojis.
Okay. Crow Lady in our chat says being probed by an alien is overrated. A friend told me so. LOL, he wants to believe in aliens. I don't want to. I do. I think, again, I've talked to too many people. I've talked to too many people who've been involved in these programs, who've witnessed it with their own eyes. I haven't seen it. I saw a UFO when I lived in Portugal, and Natalie and I both saw it, and it was remarkable. Way up in the sky, flew at an unbelievable speed in a box formation, flew back, over, up. then just shot across and then boom, flew off. My son the other day, he's like, I wish I was awake. I would have loved to have seen it too. Werner von Braun was Project Paperclip. Yeah, exactly.
You can't push any more, Grim?
No.
Did it just stop?
Jonathan was the last one. That was the $10 that he just read.
Yeah, that was the last one.
Oh, okay.
Paint Bowl back in the early part of the show says maybe they're all hiding. It's Rome 2.0. Yeah, that's the last one there. Let me just check on Rumble Rants. How does that work?
We pulled all the Rumble Rants, I believe. Those were.
Okay.
Yeah, there was just there. Well, here. I'm going to go down from like the very, very beginning and pull up some of the other ones. This one's a YouTube.
There's the one on the screen, Clayton.
Oh, Rodham Rex says most military U.S. tech is secret. Exactly. Bosho Pepper, or I don't know how you say it, Shopper says, can you get Ashton Forbes on again for an update interview? In fact, Ashton literally just texted me during the show. We were just talking. And I'd love to have him back on to talk about fusion technology. He's got some pretty big revelations that he's been working on that regard. So, yeah, if you haven't seen my interview with Ashton, I've done a couple of interviews with Ashton now. We talked, obviously, about the disappearance of Flight MH370 using teleportation technology. But all of this etheric energy and free energy stuff, I hope gets exposed because, I mean, the fact that we're like paying for all of this and all of this exists and we have access to it and the government knows about it, it's infuriating. John's
one on screen.
Pen says, I read that one already. Thank you, though. I read that before we put it up on the screen. John's Pen says, I saw Phoenix lights over Camp Pendleton, U.S. military, USMC, U.S. Marine Corps, about 2 years prior to the Arizona Phoenix lights. The Phoenix lights is an unbelievable story. If you guys don't know the Phoenix Lights story, go read Dr. Linda Katai's great book on the Phoenix Lights. She was stunned by it. She was sort of up in the hills above Phoenix when the whole city started seeing this massive craft that was like football fields long, just like hovering over the city. Even Fife Symington at the time, the governor of Arizona, admitted later, I mean, he had seen it. He admitted it later after he did that crappy press conference where he's like, he went out the next day. All of Arizona was like waiting for answers. Like, what did we see last night? This massive triangular shaped craft, a fleet of these things hovering over like 100 feet from me, like, filming it, and they're seeing these things. Then to be kind of told that they're all nuts was really insulting. Fife Symington did a press conference the next day, and he's like, we know you're all up in arms about this. We got to the bottom of it, and he brought out one of his press secretaries dressed as like an alien with a mask on it, sort of basically making fun of everyone. He said it was the greatest mistake of his gubernatorial time, and he later admitted he actually witnessed it with his own eyes. It was a great mistake, he said, that he did that sort of phony press conference.
We got one on the screen for you.
Oh. Rod Marek says, wind only needs an electric motor and copper winding. Wind only needs electric motor and copper winding. The problem with all the wind turbines and everything is just they look like crap and they're not efficient. David Ogerson says, I have a nuclear reactor in my pants. Ugh. Oh, man. Hey, Grim, your time in the military.
Yes, sir.
I want to ask you, did you ever see, first of all, where were you stationed? Where were you in the U.S. military? And did you ever witness anything that you couldn't explain?
I was in the U.S. Air Force as a military working dog handler. I was stationed at Clark Air Base in the Philippines for 2 years, from 88 to 90. did not see anything strange there other than chasing around, people in the tall grass at night. Then I was stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, where the B-2 stealth bombers now stationed. Again, didn't really see much there either because a lot of snow.
Yeah.
So I wasn't lucky. Now, I do have a story about my dad. When he was in the Air Force for 20-something years, and when he was getting ready to retire, they gave him a choice. And if you wanted to stay in, you would be stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. And they told him you would get on a plane Monday morning, fly to the job site, and then come back Friday night. You could not tell anybody where you're going or talk about what you do. So Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, guess where he would have worked?
Area 51.
There you go. I believe he probably would have worked on the stealth fighter project at the time.
Wow.
But yeah, I when he told me that, I was like, why didn't you take the job?
He's like, well, I have a family. I want to actually be home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's Dad? Monday through Friday. Who knows? Well, they have those red flights out of what's the airport in Vegas? They have those
I can't
those
remember.
red flights. What's the name of the Miss Stacy Lynn? Have you considered having David Wilcock on the show? Have you read his books? I've read all of his books. Yeah, the UFO community is weird. Like, I was always fascinated with David's work, and then people like crap all over his work, and then other people praise his work. So, the UFO community is really weird. I mean,
And that
if
was
you
a
think
Rumble
like,
rant, by the way.
oh, thank you. Yeah. Dr. Greer filmed 3 different UAPs. Anyone skeptical should diligently study and try this method to see proof. I followed the CE5 protocol from Stephen Greer. Huh. Okay, I will check. I don't even know what that is, the CE5 protocol. I'll ask Stephen Greer about that. Yeah. Well, I would love to have David Wilcock on the show. That's the thing, the UFO community. If you think like the Zionists who are like pro-Israel, and they'll, even with all evidence in front of them, like massive, totally wiped out, looks like Nagasaki. No, everything's fine. The people aren't starving there. I mean, if you think like that whole back and forth debate is bad, the UFO community might be even worse. If you ever go on like UFO Twitter, oh my God. It's like people say, I hate Stephen Greer because of this issue. And then others will say, I don't like David Wilcock because of this issue. And Lou Elizondo over here. And, I mean, I've interviewed Michael Horn a number of times, who's the, English language representative for oh my God, my brain is fried.
Billy Meyer.
Billy Meyer, thank you. It's been a long day. And people will not touch that story with a 10-foot pole. I don't know why. Like, here's a guy with verifiably copywritten information who's written it down, told people, and it's been printed, and then years later, these prophecies come true. The craft that he witnessed with his own eyes in pre-digital eras with film, never been debunked, even though people have tried to. I don't get it. But people won't touch it. It's crazy. It's so weird. The UFO community is so weird. Venetial BM, thank you for your $2 something. To the guy who thinks the government is behind.
Rant.
Okay. To the guy who see, this time there's no little Rumble logo there, so I don't know what it's like, a whale.
Yeah.
To the guy who thinks the government is behind it all, so alien abductions are just made up. Get the F out of here. Aliens are for sure real and way more advanced than us, saying this from firsthand experience. Wow. Imager Girl, 8th floor, says, yes, WTG Clayton. Yes, CE5 witness videos are in Greer's latest movie. Contact has begun. A must watch. I will watch that. And yeah, I'll have Greer back on the show about that. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Okay, Sambala, thank you for that. I'll check that out. All right. Yeah, I would love to have Venetialism BM on the show, firsthand experience. I mean, reach out to me. You know, send me a message on Twitter if you want. Would love to hear more about that. All right, guys. Yeah, and Richard Dolan, we're trying to get him on as well. I love Coast to Coast, by the way. Yeah, read Michael Horn's work. I mean, read his... Cole's Towing said, did someone actually accuse Clayton of not believing in aliens? Okay, I've seen it all. No. I for sure believe in aliens because I've talked to too many people who've witnessed it firsthand and actually have had interactions with them. Whistleblowers, members of the U.S. military, high-ranking members of the U.S. military. And I've read too much on the subject to not. But I would love to see it for my own self, for sure. And I would love to use one of the jump seats or the jump rooms to go to the moon base, for sure. Would love to. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for subscribing, being a part of the show. It's kind of turned into like a little Art Bell hour here at the last part. I love this. Like coast to coast, hanging out with everyone. I should take some callers.
The Roadcaster now has that ability.
Yeah, that'd be cool. We should do some calls. Anyway, love that. I could do this all night, talk about Coast to Coast, Art Bell, all of that stuff. I mean, I used to sit up late at night and like listen, record it. I would try to, back in the day before you could even have an app that you could play pre-recorded content from Coast to Coast, I used to record it myself. There was an app that would actually let you record like live radio. And so I would do that back in the day.
It'll just have to be when you're not on kid duty. It's like...
Well, that's when I would used to listen to it when the babies would wake up in the middle of the night and need like feeding or a bottle or something. If like Natalie pumped, I'm like, all right. She'd be like, can you go? I pumped milk. It's in the fridge, you know, like, and I'd go and I'd sit and listen to Coast at like 3 a.m. with the baby.
Well, I mean you actually being Art Bell, like sitting here right now. Oh my God,
no. I could never do like an overnight radio show. I mean, it would just destroy your life, like physically, mentally. You couldn't do it. It's just not good for your body. People get cancer. You know, it's just not good. It's not good for you. Anyway, I mean, I say that from firsthand experience when I worked in television at like Fox News and other places. The people that like worked from like midnight to 5 a.m., like they just didn't look good. And a lot of them got cancer. Like we're just not really, I don't know. Philip, I know you worked like overnights for a long time too. Did you see?
Yeah, I did.
Sorry. We're still live, by the way.
Hey, Grim, we can hear you, Grim. Man.
Sorry.
No, I worked nights, but I'm geared towards it. So like it didn't bother me at all. The only time it was ever off-putting was when we were doing 12-hour shifts. Because you'd get there, like we had specialized equipment we had to use. And so like I would show up to my shift, take the equipment from the person from the shift before. I would work my whole shift, and when I'd get done, that person would be there taking it back from me. That was off-putting. But other than that, it never really bothered me. I did that for a couple of years.
Some people can handle it, and you can handle it for a couple of years, like when you have when you're younger and you have some energy. And I did it for a lot of years in television, but it really wears you down. I just saw people getting cancer. It's just not, it's just not good for you. I just don't think we're meant to like sleep during the day, REM wrote a song on their album called Up, called Day Sleeper. And I totally related to that song. Like just someone
unless
like
you're
living,
a teenage boy, then it's okay, but you grow out of it.
My son today, because it's so important for teenagers to get sleep, I mean, that's where their growth spurt happens. So teenagers need to sleep a lot. And we know the science on that now. My son literally slept until noon today. Oh, man. Anyway, oh, to be young. All right, thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Again, thanks for subscribing, being a part of our show. We'll be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We are live just about every day. We'll be back with the news of the day. Hopefully, we'll talk a little UFO news, as always, paranormal news, and we'll have that in the show as well. Trying to incorporate more of that into the show because, I mean, I enjoy it, first of all. It really excites me, and the kid in me comes out for sure. And a lot of the news of the day dealing with Epstein and a lot of the, you know, the crap that the government hides from us can be taxing on your brain from time to time. So be able to cover some of those stories. Let me know down below if you would enjoy more of that, because I would love to bring it to you, by the way. So thanks, everyone. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.